Dobro večer, dobrodošli. U Fokusu večeras priča interesantna, ne baš uobičajena i nekako postaje deo naše svakodnevice koliko smo mi svesni vera i nauka ili vera ili nauka. Gde su granice danas kosmologije, istraživanja kosmosa, koliko je čovek kao ljudsko biće napredovao u istraživanju i kosmosa i svog okruženja, pre svega samog sebe. Na ove interesantne teme razgovaramo sa našim i vašim gostima, sa nama i vama u studiju. Čovek koji ima predavanje niškim studentima, putuje po Srbiji, inače je kosmolog i nuklearni fizičar, dr. Aleksandar Fink, direktor Instituta za nauku i veru Marburg iz Nemačke. Good evening, welcome. Dobro večer, dobrodošli.
Hvala, dobar dan.
Dobar dan, dobro nam došli.
Dobro večer.
Dobro nam došli.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Večeras nam u čitavoj ovoj priči pomaže i naš drugi gost, Samuel Petrovski, direktor EUS-a. Dobro večer, dobrodošli.
Dobro večer i hvala na pozivu.
Pomoći ćete nam ne samo u prevodu, nego da i malo bolje razumemo čitavu ovu priču. Aleksandar Fink je, kao što rekli smo, direktor Instituta za nauku i veru, kosmolog i nuklearni fizičar. Šta se to dešava ovih dana u Nišu? Otkud interesovanje za ove naše prostore? Koliko mi razumemo fiziku, kosmologiju, nauku?
Hvala što ste nazvali, kao što ste rekli, ja sam direktor jedne organizacije EUS koja rade sa studentima, zove se Evanđelsko udruženje studenta i naš cilj je da dovedemo interesantne, poznate svetske govornike i naučnike u Srbiju da razgovaraju sa studentima i da stvorimo neku kulturu debate. Građani Niša se sećaju, mi smo pre par godina doveli ovde u Niš Nika Vujičića. To je bio jedan veliki događaj u onoj velikoj sali ovde u Nišu. I eto, sada nam je gost i ovde dr. Fink. Dr. Fink je prošle godine bio u Subotici, u Novom Sadu, u Beogradu, Podgorici. Na ovom drugom putovanju je bio u Zagrebu, Sarajevu i u Nišu. Biće u Nišu ovde. Juče održao jedno predavanje, večeras treba da održi drugo predavanje. I mi gledamo da dovedemo tako poznate i dobre i stručnjake da naši mladi ljudi mogu da prošire vidike.
Sad, kako će proširiti vidike? Šta je tema njegovog predavanja?
Tema, jučer, on ima dva predavanja koje drže ovde. Jedno predavanje je bilo da li smo sami u svemiru. To je aktualna tema po pitanju kosmosa. Je dr. Fink i njegov institut uradili su jedan fantastičan video materijal, DVD, koji mi gledamo sad da ga prevedemo na srpski, gde on intervjuiše 10 poznatih svetskih naučnika, kosmologa o kosmosu. I tu postavlja silna pitanja. I tema koju će večeras niškim studentima da predaje, da govorit će o neurologiji i veštačkoj inteligenciji. Tako da to je interesantna tema, naročito danas u 21. veku gde se te nauke veoma brzo razvijaju i mi ovde u Srbiji treba malo da pratimo šta se dešava u svetu.
Na osnovu onoga što ste do sada videli, pre nego što krenemo sa pitanjima za naše goste, koliko pratimo ono što se dešava u svetu?
Pa mi ljudi ovde u Srbiji bavimo se dosta egzistencijalnim pitanjima i mnogi ljudi gledaju kako da prežive i mnogi mladi ljudi i studenti, nažalost, to je i statistike pokazuju, ne vide svoju budućnost u našoj zemlji i gledaju samo da nađu neki posao. Međutim, postoji velika grupa mladih ljudi i studenta koji putem interneta, putem različitih interesovanja, predavanja, konferencija, sada se mnogo više putuje nego što se putovalo 90. godina kad sam ja bio student, prate različite dešavanja i žele da ostanu u kontaktu sa najnovijim istraživanjima i sa najnovijim naučnim otkrićima. Tako da ja mislim da je to veoma, veoma važna stvar za naše mlade ljude i za naše društvo uopšte, da dobijemo kvalitetne predavače i da ti kvalitetni predavači dolaze širom Srbije. Ne samo da dođu u Beograd, Novi Sad, nego da dođemo u Kragujevac, Niš. Još uvijek nismo bili u Kragujevcu, ali gledat ćemo dr. Fink sledeći put, kad bude došao u Srbiju, dođe u Kragujevac i u neke druge gradove, da i drugi studenti sa drugih univerziteta mogu da čuju njegova predavanja.
Dr. Fink, are we alone in space?
Well, this is a really big question, and I give lectures about that. So the question about this is actually multifaceted. So one question, of course, about this is, are we alone in the universe? Is there extraterrestrial life? And if we are not, then this will change our whole outlook, of course, because then there are other intelligent beings somewhere in space and we might be able to relate to them. The only problem is that up to now we don't have good evidence for that. So like there are some UFO sightings, unidentified flying objects, but most of them, or nearly all of them, could be traced back to some natural phenomena. So I would say it's quite clear that there are no UFOs. And if there were, the big question would be, why are they not showing more clearly? And why are they hiding so much? So, like, are they among us? Are you an alien, for example, hiding there? I think this is very unlikely, because if they have advanced technology, they should take over, actually. And yeah, I think the evidence is bad. But the other question behind that is, of course, are we alone in the universe? Is there maybe someone who created the universe? Are we not... are we just creatures and someone else prepared the universe for us to be here? And this is a question which is much more open, I would say, and because of several results of science. Mm-hmm. For example, when you think about what you need that life can exist, you need, on the one hand, the right universe with the right basic parameters, with the right basic fundamental constants of physics, like the forces and the masses of the electron and the gravitational force and so on the one side. And then you also need the right place for life to live, like planet Earth with the sun. And you could be an optimist and say, well, but this will happen all the time when you create a universe. But the more physics advanced, and astrophysics especially, we found out that it is a very peculiar state in which our universe is. So when you look at the balance of the different forces, let's just take one example, the gravitational force within the universe, the mass density, and on the other side, the so-called dark energy, the vacuum energy density that drives the universe apart from each other and expands it. These two forces, one is going outside, the other one is pulling together. They have a balance. And now scientists could try to calculate how accurate this balance must be. I mean, could these two forces, these counterplayers, be in any balance, or does it have to be fine-tuned? And they found out that this balance needs to fit to a very fine degree. And the number is actually 1 to 10 to the power of 60. Which means if you change this ratio, gravitation versus expansive force, if you change this by 0.0000, 59 zeros, and then a 1, then the universe would either have expanded much too fast, that there would have been no chance for galaxies to form. No galaxies, no stars, no planets, no Earth, no human beings. And on the other side, if the ratio would be changed in the other direction by this tiny fraction, then the universe would have collapsed much too early, and there would also not have been enough time for galaxies to form. And it's such a tiny fraction that makes the difference. But the universe, amazingly, has hit exactly the right ratio. And this is just one example. And just for you to imagine the smallness of this number and the high accuracy, Paul Davies, who is an astrophysicist, he compared this number to a soldier on planet Earth has the task to hit a 1-cent coin, not at the sun, not in our galaxy, not in the next galaxy, but at the edge of the universe, at the other side of the universe. Then the surface of the whole universe, compared to the surface of that 1-cent coin, is exactly that ratio, 1 to 10 to the power of 60, a 1 with 60 zeros. And that's the accuracy by which that has met. So if you ask this and see this, it's just like, wow, is this accident, chance? Does it have to be like that? We don't have any indication. Or is there someone who said, well, I must create a universe which has the capacity to have human life, because I love human life and I want them to be there. And so that makes people think. But of course, this question goes beyond science then. Science can only say, wow, it's amazing, there is an amazing accuracy. That is a scientific fact, which all scientists agree. And it's not the only one, there are several other forces. All these forces need to be fine-tuned to a very high degree. So that's amazing when you look at that.
Zaista zvuči kao savršen poredak u kosmosu. koliko bi neka naša, sad ja imam 1000 pitanja vezano samo za ovaj segment. Zašto smatramo, da li je ljudska vrsta toliko egoistična da smatra da je drugom obliku života potreban isti uslov kao što imamo mi na zemlji. Mi u stvari sve, kada tražimo te neke druge oblike života, prilagođavamo te uslove onima koji su nama potrebni. Šta kažu naučnici? Da li možda neki drugi oblik života može da egzistira u nekim drugim uslovima koje mi još ne poznajemo? Je li to arogantan stav ljudske vrste da sve mora da bude po meri čoveka, čak i u kosmosu?
Is that arrogant attitude that humans have, that they can create perfect like life conditions in other Earths? Why they want to create that, or is that possible to create that?
That's a very interesting question, and there are people who believe we can do it, like Elon Musk works on that. It's of course a question how many conditions you would have to meet. And if you look superficially on Earth and on other planets, you might think like, well, that might be an easy task. Just some air, some water, and the whole system will run. And so I don't think that it is arrogant, I just think it's very speculative. Because we are justified to ask any question to nature, and we can try, otherwise science cannot proceed and cannot make progress. So we need to ask these questions. But actually, as scientists have tried to develop such artificial atmospheres and ecosystems, and they have done that, as far as I know, on Hawaii, on the island of Hawaii. And they tried a test for half a year to have 6 people living in this artificial atmosphere without any interference from outside. And they realized that even on our planet, on a little island like Hawaii, it's already very difficult to sustain the necessary conditions. Because what do you need for an ecosystem to run? You need cycles. You need a water cycle. You need an air cycle. For an air cycle, you need plants. You need human beings. And you know, when you are on another planet like Mars, there is not much oxygen outside. And there is nearly no atmosphere on Mars, for example. So to create such a thing is a very complicated thing. And if one thing fails, the whole system will break down. And that's very similar to the fine-tuning of the universe. If one constant does not fit the right ratio, then we are gone. Fortunately, the constants are the way, and we can't change them. But for an artificial atmosphere, of course, it's another thing. We can change the atmosphere, and we are doing that right now with planet Earth. So we should be very careful what we do with our planet, because it's a delicate balance, and I would be cautious, even though there are lots of open questions regarding the climate change and so on. But I think that if there is a factor like carbon dioxide, which has some effect on the climate, we should be very careful not to change that factor and parameter too much in order not to get outside the balance that is allowed for life to exist.
Da, Elon Musk je poprilično uporan da kolonizuje Mars, čak obećava i neke komercijalne letove, ako se ne varam. Imamo i prvog dobitnika tog komercijalnog leta. Samo da vratim pitanje nazad. Dakle, da li je moguće da postoje neki drugi oblici života kojima nisu neophodni uslovi za život koji su potrebni ljudskoj vrsti?
Is any other life on different planets who can exist without necessary atmosphere or oxygen that humans have here?
Well, in the moment, we just don't know about that. I mean, we have about discovered 3,500 planets in other star systems, in other solar systems, but we have not yet found any evidence for life. We have also looked in our own solar system, and sometimes we find fractions of organic molecules or little chains. But if you look into the chemistry and the biochemistry in the setup of the cell, then you discover that a cell might look simple from the outside, but it's very, very complicated in the inside, because you need long chains of amino acids. 10,000 of amino acids form a protein, and the protein needs to have a certain structure in order to fulfill the function. Like a simple molecule might be the ATP synthetase, which is kind of the turbine, the engine in the cell, because there is a rotor, and that is located in a stator in the membrane, in the mitochondrial membrane. And when there is a proton flux, like a water flux, going through that, then it starts to rotate. And through the rotation, you get an energy that can be transferred to a change in conformation, and then molecules, the so-called ADP molecules, can be transferred and filled with energy into ATP molecules. And they are actually the energy packets that flow through the cell and must be used by other molecules. So you see, this is all really very fine-tuned in the cell too. So if we claim that there are other planets with life, then there must not only be a planet with water, but there must be amino acids, there must be sugar molecules, there must be lipid membranes and so on to shield the cell and so on. So a lot of factors have to come together, macromolecules, large macromolecules. And if you look at the conditions of most of those exoplanets, then we are very unsure whether they have an atmosphere. And if there is no atmosphere, usually the radiation is very strong. And radiation damages molecules, especially if there are long molecules, like the biomolecules. They are all long molecules. And if the radiation destroys them, we know that personally from getting cancer or other diseases, then life will disappear. So that life can exist, a lot of factors have to come together, and it's not an easy task, and it would take long times. And actually there are some papers that have been published, like chance and necessity do not explain the origin of life, which says it's not just about having enough time, but you need the right direction, that these molecules come together, are built together, like with a plan. They need integrative management, as a paper by Trevor and Abels said it. And the question is, where does this come from? Because integrative management means information. And when you think, just imagine you fly to another planet, and on this planet you find an intelligent system which is controlled by information. What would you conclude? You would probably say there is an intelligent agent who set that up. But when we would look from the outside on our planet Earth, we would find a very intelligent system running, which is called life, and which is based on information, you know, the genetic information, the hereditary information in the DNA. And this information must be read by proteins that are coded themselves in this information. So it's like a hen-egg problem. There must be a machine to read the information, and there must be the information so that this machine can be built together. So it's really a big task to find,
like
where
circle?
does this come? Yeah, like a circle, like a circle. And the question is, where does this come from? Because one without the other is hard to get. And there are some possibilities, but all of them have not really hit the target. So in the moment, the researchers who search for an origin of life really don't have a clue where this could come from. We just see whether we find a mechanism or not.
From Orion, maybe? No?
Well, this is one theory, because
Yes.
when you look to the sediments of Earth, you don't find any hints for an original soup. And this is one of the most famous theories, that there was an
Yes.
original soup, but we don't find any sediments for that. So probably on Earth there has never been an original soup. Otherwise we should find traces for that. But, and so some scientists say, well, and time was very short on planet Earth, because life is right there 4 billion years ago, when Earth solidified and when it was possible that life was there. So some said, like Francis Crick, Nobel Prize winner, that life must have come from outer space. But then we have an additional...
In which form?
Like seeds. Bacteria.
Like seeds.
Bacteria,
Yes.
for example, or something. But the question is then just transferred to another
Not
planet.
like Finnish human being.
No, definitely
No,
not.
no. Okay.
I mean, human beings floating through space would really not survive the journey. You can calculate that. You know, the next star is about 4 light years away, which means light travels 4 years.
Yes.
You can calculate that it would take, if you had a spaceship that could travel at 1 million kilometers per hour, which is quite fast, and we have no technology traveling at that speed until now, up to now. But if we had that, it would take 4,500 years for us to get to the next star, which is Alpha Centauri. And we have good telescopes watching this star and the planets around that star, and there is not yet indication that there is life there. So it must be further away. Think about traveling more than 4,000 years from one planet to another, and then you need to go the right direction. You need to know that there is Earth and I can live there and so on. It's just shifting the problem. And then you have the radiation problem on the way, because you travel along the sun, you have the cosmic radiation, which is all destructive to life.
A šta kažu naučnici kada već pričamo o tome, o ovoj teoriji drevnih astronauta? Upravo zato sam pitala u kojoj formi je došao na planetu. Teoretičari drevnih astronauta tvrde, kao Erich von Däniken, jedan od tih zagovarača te teorije, da smo došli ne u formi kao čovjek, da smo naselili planetu. Šta kaže zvanična nauka kada je u pitanju ta teorija drevnih vanzemaljaca?
What science said about ancient astronaut or ancient like about this philosophy that we came as a human beings from another planet here? What official science said?
Official science?
Yes.
Well, most scientists would say it's very, very unlikely because of the reasons that I just give. It would take so long, and just imagine human beings traveling on a limited spaceship for 4,000 years. Imagine this is hundreds of generations, and they must live peacefully, and they must have resources. They must have an own ecosystem on that spaceship in order to survive. I mean, Spaceship Enterprise is a nice science fiction series. I love it, but it's very unrealistic, because how can such a spaceship really have enough air and have a good ecocycle and nothing going wrong there? So I think we are far, far away from producing such a thing. We can try it, but the question is really, how can aliens from another planet travel to us? And when we look in the surroundings of our own galaxy, in the closer surroundings, which is about 1,000 light years, light traveling 1,000 years already, which is very, very far away, how could they ever travel to us? And then the next galaxy, Andromeda galaxy, is even 2 million light years away, which means this is out of reach. Even if they have sent a radio signal, which is the fastest possible signal you could send, it would take more than 2 million years to reach us. So until the signal has reached us, they would have died out already, probably. So it's very improbable, and most scientists would say there is no alien life, at least not that it can communicate with us.
A da li razmišljaju možda naučnici o brzini većoj od brzine svetlosti?
Do the scientists think about faster than light traveling?
This is, of course, an interesting thought for science fiction. But the problem is, the faster you travel, you need to use Einstein's special relativity. And this will always mean the faster you travel, the larger your mass becomes. That means you really get very heavy and heavy and heavy, and that changes the infrastructure of your body. And I mean, is this possible for elementary particles, like for electrons or for protons? We use that in the CERN, for example, in the acceleration rings there, and to do experiments. But for living beings, large speeds probably are causing death. Mm-hmm. So. And then there is this nice theory about wormholes, for example. And if you think about that, like in the movie Interstellar, that there is kind of a wormhole, and then suddenly you can jump from one side of the universe to the other side of the universe. There is such a strong force there in such a wormhole, when you calculate the equations, that would even disrupt molecules. And molecules really hold tightly to each other. And not only molecules, but even atoms and nuclei. So just think what happens to your body if you come close to such a wormhole. I would not like to be there. Mm-hmm. And so if people travel through that, that will destroy them. They might arrive on the other side if these things exist at all. We are not sure yet whether these things exist. But if they exist, we might travel through, but we will not arrive on the other side alive.
Naravno. Svaki put razmišljamo o zajedničkom, o putovanju tela. Dakle, i naučnici sve vreme govore o tome, o molekulima. Da li nauka razmatra postojanje nečega što nije opipljiva materija, kao što je misao, kao što je ljubav, kao što je nešto što je vezano za energiju, mržnja, bilo koja vrsta emocije? Kako je naučnici doživljavaju?
How the science are reflecting in something new, like something that scientists cannot touch or do the research,
feelings,
like thought, like love.
Yeah.
What do you
like
think about
energy.
that? Like
Yeah.
energy.
Yes.
That's a very good question. How can we know about our feelings, for example, and about love? Science can only deal with material phenomena that you can measure. So what scientists are doing, they put you into a MRT device, magnetic resonance imaging tomography, and then they measure the currents and the magnetic fields in your brain. And so what do they see by that? They see changes in activity in your brain. But what they don't see is your thoughts, your feelings. And this is an amazing thing, that we ourselves as human beings are the only ones to have access to our own feelings. I can talk about that, I can communicate that with language, but I can never be sure whether you understand it the right way. For example, I can say, I see a white shirt. You are wearing a white shirt. And you will say, yeah, I understand, a white shirt. But we can never be sure whether the white, the color white that I experience in myself, in my eye, in my soul, is the same white that you see. We just agree that the word white is the same for this shirt that I see. But we can only guess by empathy that I see white, so you must experience something similar, because you have similar eyes and similar brain and so on, like me, and so you must experience something similar. But we can only communicate about that, and that is very peculiar, that science cannot deal with essentials of us human beings. So if human beings are only matter and nothing than matter, then this is a big question. Where does consciousness come from? What is consciousness? Is consciousness just a complex conformation of matter? And why can't we measure it then? Why can we only measure currents and streams and so on, and not consciousness itself? And why can we trust our thoughts? This is a very problematic thought for materialism, because if our thoughts are nothing but currents in our brain that are irrational natural phenomena, why should these thoughts be right? Why should they be true or false? And how can we know that they are true or false? And this is the basic problem of materialism, that in materialism, my atoms make me think something, and your atoms make you think something else. But everything is just causation. It is not reasons. For our thinking to be true, it must be free from necessity, and it cannot be random, because random does not produce truth, and necessity does not produce truth. It must be free and reliable. And that, for me, is a big argument that human beings are more than just matter. We are souls. We don't have a soul. I think we are souls. Souls connected with a material body. And science cannot disprove that. Of course, there is one big question about that, and is how can a mind, a soul, interact with the body? But I think when we look at what makes a human being, then there is good evidence that we are more than just matter, and we can interact with matter. For example, I can make your brain currents change by just saying, what is 13 times 17? And suddenly your brain changes because you start to calculate according to that calculation, and your brain takes another change. So mind can influence matter just by thinking. And I can also say, I want to raise my arm. And matter changes. It's just amazing. And of course, you don't see the I, the self, in the brain. You can't measure it. But everything we know seems that it's there.
Kako su ta znanja primijenjena na razvoj veštačke inteligencije? Kako ste rekli, neurologija i...
Neurologija i veštačka inteligencija. How these thoughts and development are influencing artificial intelligence?
That is also a good question regarding artificial intelligence, because if intelligence and consciousness and everything is nothing but matter in the worldview of materialism, then of course it should be possible to build artificial intelligence or artificial consciousness even. And it's important to know that intelligence is not necessarily tied to consciousness, depending on how you define our intelligence. If intelligence is just taken to be solving a problem, then you don't need to be a human being. You can have a chess computer, and a chess computer can solve a chess problem. By just, you enter some data, and you have an algorithm that you have programmed, and then the chess computer calculates the solution, and might be even faster than a human being. But this does not mean that a chess computer has real thoughts. It just means the chess computer can simulate to produce from a certain input a certain output. But it does not mean that the chess computer has thoughts or is rational. It's just a good programmed computer. And so the big question for artificial intelligence is, can artificial intelligence not only calculate, but can it even have thoughts and become a subject with a consciousness? And I personally would doubt that, because I believe that we are not just matter, but there is a spiritual dimension to human beings. And so my prediction is that we can simulate more and more intelligent androids, for example, that have certain programs and algorithms, but you need to teach them everything. You need to teach them every word in every language, and then you can build in some chance algorithms, of course, and evolutionary algorithms that are able to learn and so on.
Like Android Sophia?
But they only simulate. They don't have feelings. They can act as if they have fear, for example, and they can act as if they are joyful or envious or anything. But my suspicion is they are not envious and so on, because they are just machines on which programs are running. And the programs just calculate from one input to another state to an output. And we human beings are intelligent, and we know how we behave when we have certain feelings. And only we ourselves know that we have feelings. I cannot even judge whether you have feelings. You might be a zombie and just simulating feelings. But from empathy, I guess that you also have feelings, real feelings. But we can only communicate about that. And the machine does not have feelings. I think it can only simulate the behavior, the external behavior. And that's the difference between artificial intelligence and between conscious human beings and conscious animals.
Je li to onda razlog zašto se zapravo razvija ta veštačka inteligencija?
Is that the reason why the artificial intelligence is developing then? Why they're developing that concept?
The reason for that is because it's very interesting, of course, and it can fulfill several tasks much faster than we can, of course. And sometimes feelings really are problematic. For example, if you think about the military, they are very interested in artificial intelligence, because a human being having to shoot another person, another soldier, might always feel like, should I do that or should I not do that? Because we are moral beings at the same time. But
Or
if you
feel some anger.
Or feel angry or something. And the machine will just do what it is programmed to do, and you can you don't have any problems with feelings or with conscience, like, am I allowed to do that or not, and so on. They will just do what they are programmed for.
Is it good or bad?
The machines, you mean?
Yes.
It really depends, because I would say in military, of course, it is bad, because it's always good if you have empathy with another human being and with another living being. But of course, there are really good advantages from artificial intelligence at the same time, like performing great things in medicine, for example, like helping with surgery and so on, because they can be much more accurate and they are not that error prone as human beings. Human beings are very error prone, doing something and then slightly slipping to the wrong side, and in a surgery that might cause big troubles for the patient then. So it's great that we have artificial intelligence, but we always need to know we set the rules for artificial intelligence, and we should be cautious, because artificial intelligence can process data much faster than we can, but artificial intelligence does not have a conscience and does not have consciousness, so they will just do what they are programmed for. And there are some predictions like Homo Deus by Yuval Harari and so on, who says that in a few decades they might have outruled all the professions of human beings, like pharmacists and teachers and lawyers and so on, because they have more data that they can process.
But in wrong hand, it can be so dangerous.
Exactly. It is The same as with every technology. Every technology can be used for the good or can be used for the destruction, like the nuclear bomb, for example.
Like everything.
Like everything. Nuclear power can really be a blessing to nations to produce energy without producing carbon dioxide, but it can also destroy everything when there is an accident or when then there is a bomb. And the same is true with medicine, with genetic engineering, for example. You can help people by that, but you can also manipulate people by that and create human beings that you want to be that way and so on. So every technology is always ambivalent, and we need standards. We need objective standards that really take into account that human beings are unique, that they have a dignity that may not be changed by artificial intelligence and so on, or by any dictatorship. But actually, if power is everything that rules...
we can protect human race.
Human beings cannot. But I think, I believe that there is a God and that everyone who lives will be judged by that God one day and will meet that God. And so I think we should better pay attention to his standards. And his standard is every human being is created in the image of God. Whether it's an intelligent scientist or whether it is a 90-year-old grandfather who has dementia and cannot even speak a word anymore, they are all made in the image of God, and so we should treat every human being with dignity. And I agree, if there is no God, then we have no one to protect us. I agree with that. But we cannot be sure that there is no God. No scientists can prove that ever. And I think there is good evidence that there is God. If you look into science...
Science can prove aliens anyway. And God anyway.
Well, the point about science and God is, of course, that like Yuri Gagarin...
Is that Gagarin, opposite or not?
No, I don't think science and God is not opposite, even though some people say it, but they often say it for the wrong reasons. Because sometimes they say, like, Yuri Gagarin flew into the sky and he did not see God. Like, show me Van Gogh in his picture. Oh, he's not in his picture, so does he exist? No, he does not exist. Of course he exists, but he's not part of the picture. Because as he is the creator of the picture, he cannot even be a part of the picture. And the same is true with God. If God would be measurable in nature and an object of nature, he would not be the creator of nature. So I think we can find traces in nature that point to an intelligent creator, but we cannot find God himself in nature. And the fine-tuning of the universe and the information that is the basis for all life, they are good reasons to believe in a creator. And then, of course, you can ask, so who is that creator then? This is a question that science cannot answer, because we can only answer measurable things and maybe find traces for purpose for an intelligent being. So we are dependent with our limited minds and brains that this creator somehow made a connection with us and communicated to us. And then we need to go into religion, into theology, and into history and ask the question, has there ever been a message throughout human history that someone claimed, I am God and I'm communicating to you? And actually there have been such messages, especially by Jesus Christ, who said, I am the Son and I have seen the Father, and whoever trusts me and sees me sees the Father. So if that is true, this is the most amazing thing. It's more amazing than man landing on moon, that God walked on earth. It's more important, because then this is a message of the purpose of the universe. And if we understand Jesus Christ correctly, then this means God wants to speak to us one-on-one, and he loves everyone. He wants to invite us into a relationship with him, and we can pray to him, and he has a plan for our life. And this is the best message that I could imagine.
Da li su zato naučnici nazvali Higgsov bozon Božjom česticom? Zašto su nazvali Higgsov bozon Božjom česticom? Otkud nauka i Bog sad ponovo zajedno?
Why do scientists call God's čestica?
God's particle.
Yes, particle. Why they call it with that name?
This is a longer story, but basically it's a misunderstanding, because there was a physicist, Peter Higgs, who predicted that particle theoretically with mathematics, which is another peculiar thing, that mathematics can describe matter, by the way, which points to matter being more than just matter, but there is mind, just a side remark. But Peter Higgs predicted there must be such a particle. But the problem was they did experiments, that was in the 60s, by the way, so 50 years ago, and they could not find that particle. So some scientists said, this is a God-damned particle. And one scientist wrote a book called The God-Damned Particle. And the editor of that book said, sorry, but that's a bad title. You can't call it that way. And so the scientists said, okay, let's just call the particle the God particle, because the Higgs boson is responsible for us and for atoms and for elementary particles to have mass. So without the Higgs boson field, we would not have any mass at all. Fortunately, it is there and we have mass, and so we can live and exist and so on. But that's the reason why it's called God particle. It gives mass to everyone and to everything, and it was hard to find, and it took 50 years until it finally was found. But again, if you look at that, it seems to be that there is again some fine-tuning to the Higgs boson as well, that it has the right strength in order to lend enough mass and differentiated kinds of mass to different particles, so that electrons have a different mass than quarks and so on. So, and all this in the right way so that atoms can exist and so on. So we come back to the fine-tuning problem again when we think about that.
Koliko brzo napreduje nauka, gde će biti naučna istraživanja kosmosa za 10-20 godina? Hoćemo li otići u svemir? Hoćemo li sresti Boga? Rekli smo, kaže gospodin, da to ne isključuje jedno drugo, naprotiv.
What is your prediction, like in 10 years, for the science? How science will develop? Will be able to measure more universe? Can we travel in universe maybe and find God there? How to find Him? Because you said that science and God are not necessarily against each other.
Yeah, as I said, I don't believe that science can find the person of God, because if you find God sitting on a planet, then you can be quite sure that this God has not created the universe. Because God must be different from the universe to be the cause and the creator of the universe. Like Van Gogh is the painter of his painting and not part of his creation.
You mean like energy? You mean like
well,
some
energy
feelings?
is part of the universe. Energy is part of the universe. And energy seems to have a beginning at the Big Bang. Our universe has a beginning. So the big question is, what is the cause and the reason for the universe to exist? Why is there anything and not nothing? The universe itself is not eternal, even though 100 years the scientists believed that. But the universe has a beginning, and so the question is, and even scientists realize that, what or who is the reason and the cause for the universe to exist? If this universe is not the first thing to exist, because there was something before the universe that caused it to exist with the Big Bang, and so on. Yeah, so as I said,
like emotions maybe.
But emotions are always connected to a person who can have emotions. And I agree with you. I think will and emotion might be a better cause for the universe than just matter. And there is a very interesting paper by an Austrian scientist called Anton Zeilinger, which is called Bit Before It. And he says that the whole mysteries of quantum mechanics might be explained best if we realize that the fundamental quantity and the fundamental substrate of the universe is not matter, but information. But information always begs the question, where does it come from? And information usually comes from an intelligent sender, which again would point to God. And the Gospel of John, for example, starts with, in the beginning was the Word, the Logos, and the Logos, the Word was with God, and God was the Word. So it seems that there a lot of hints point back that there is an intelligent person that is the cause for the universe.
Još samo jedno pitanje za kraj. Kako naučnici gledaju na te akaške zapise za koji kažu da su negde u univerzumu smešteni kao neki veliki softver iz koga s vremena na vreme veliki geniji kao što je na primjer bio Tesla ili ne znam Leonardo da Vinci ili kako se zove Sirayama iz Indije koji je odjednom postao veliki matematičar, vuku to neko opšte veliko znanje. Ne znam koliko je naš gost upoznat sa jednom od tih teorija da postoje negdje u svemiru neki veliki softver koga su nazvali kao akaški zapisi i da je tu zapravo smešteno svo znanje i o tvorcu, i o nastanku kosmosa, i o zemlji.
She asked, is there any, what scientist says, is there any big software outside of in the universe which sometimes giving special knowledge to like famous people like Tesla or Leonardo da Vinci inspire people? And how do you like...
Šta kažu naučnici na te teorije?
And da ga pitamo isto i za čuda isto.
Da.
How the scientists see the miracles as well.
Jer zapravo se sve to podvede pod čuda kada neko postane genije, česti mir.
How do you see that?
Yeah. Well, I see that new ideas like famous people and scientists have usually cannot be reduced to former things. It's not just environment plus your genes that yield new ideas, but new ideas somehow are creative, come from outside. I agree completely with that. And I think that the reason for that is that we are not just matter and determined by our environment and by our genes, but we are more. We are souls who are creative and who are created in the image of the most creative spirit and mind that is out there, who is God. And so, regarding miracles, I would say, if you are a materialist and you say there is nothing but the universe, which is also already a presupposition, then of course there are no miracles possible, because there is no one who could do miracles. But this is begging the question, because the interesting question is there more than the universe? Is there someone who gives purpose to the universe, or is the universe just purposeless and we are just specks in the universe, dust that floats around and disappears again? Or is there a meaning, a higher purpose to our life? And if we want to know this, then the big question is, have there been miracles? Is there evidence for that? And for me, the largest miracle is if a dead person that truly was dead can be alive again. And this is what the New Testament actually tells us, that there was this Jesus Christ who claimed to be God, and he died, he was crucified, and even a spear was put into his chest so that blood came out, and then he was dead for 3 days, and on the third day he was resurrected again, what Christians celebrate during Easter. And if that happened, this changes the whole view, the whole perspective on world history and on my own life. And there's actually good historical evidence that there was something special there. Because if you think about what might have happened at that time, the grave of Jesus Christ must have been empty. Because if his body would still have been in the grave, the Romans and the Jews could have taken the body of Jesus, could have shown to everyone and say, you know, the Christians are really annoying us, but here is the dead body of Jesus, so he is dead. And they claim he is alive, so forget about it. But the body was not there, so the grave must have been empty. That's the first evidence. If robbers had taken that body, then they would have earned a lot of money and honor if they had brought this body to the Romans or to the Jews, because they wanted to get rid of the Christians because of the dogmatic teaching of them. But no one gave the body, obviously, to the Romans or to the Jews. So probably robbers also did not take the body. So was it the Christians who took it? But that would raise other difficult questions, because if Christians took that body and wanted to create a story that is as plausible as possible, what would they have told to people? They certainly would not have told them that the first people to witness the empty tomb were women. Because in those days, 2,000 years ago, women, neither with the Jews nor with the Romans, would be reliable witnesses. People would say, what? Women told you that the grave is empty and Jesus was resurrected? Forget about that. We know that women talk a lot today. It's different today, fortunately. And I think one reason why women today have a much bigger respect is because Jesus started to give them the same value as he gave to men, by the way. So he took women to spread the news, and even women were the first to be witnesses to the apostles.
Can we find the God and the scientists through the other religion?
Sorry, can
we find God or scientists through the other religion?
Through other
in the other religions?
Yes.
Well, for scientists, that's always difficult, because what can we do as scientists and historians? We can only look for evidence and see what evidence supports which religion. And most religions, like Hinduism or Buddhism, are not really tied to history. If history ran another way, Buddhism and Hinduism might still be true, because they are still a metaphysical concept. Christianity is unique in a way as the Apostle Paul, for example, says, if Jesus Christ has not existed and has not been risen from the dead, then we are the most to be pitied of all human beings. Because we are wrong witnesses against God, and we should rather live, eat, and drink and be happy because the next day we will be dead. So Paul himself says, and he persecuted the church and then became a Christian after he met Jesus Christ personally, and then he was persecuted himself for this new faith. So he invested a lot in his life for this faith. And so he says, if Jesus was not resurrected, then our faith is an illusion and we should stop believing that. And so this is a strong statement. So Christianity is really tied a lot to history. And we need to find historical evidence. And if you think how the church started, it was not very bright people. It was fishermen. It was people who were persecuted, had no political power. It was people who had no riches. Every money they had, they gave to the poor and to the widows and so on to care for them. And still the movement grew and grew and grew. And when they were asked by the emperor or by the rulers, either you give up your faith or we will kill you, nearly every one of them said, well, my life is an eternal life and you can't kill my real life, which is with God. So I will never renounce my faith. And so a lot of them were killed for their faith without killing anyone themselves, as today often unfortunately happens.
Šta kaže nauka? Apropo čitave ovoj priče o religiji i o nauci i o kosmosu, da li se život završava smrću?
What scientists
To je poslednje pitanje za večeras.
The last question for tonight is what scientists said is this life finished with death? Is the end of the life death?
Okay, does life end with death?
Yes.
I mean, scientists cannot say much about that because we can only check the body. But there is this research about near-death experiences. I don't know whether you've heard about that. People who don't show any sign of brain activity anymore and often no sign of heart activity anymore. So the physical basis for life seems to have stopped. And some of these people have not died but can be resuscitated again after a few hours and so on. And there are about 1/3 or 1/4 of those patients who report that they actually had experiences and that they saw themselves and the whole room from outside. And so you could always say, well, okay, they might just have some storage in their brain and so on, and it's just an illusion. But the peculiar thing is that some can even report the numbers on machines in that room that they could never have seen just lying on the desk there, being undergoing surgery. Or some even report that they were outside the hospital and saw what their relatives have done or that accidents happened and so on. And so I think there is some evidence that at least sometime after physical death, when the brain is dead, consciousness carries on. So what's the reason for that? The reason might be that we are not just our body, but that we are souls that live in the body, and when the body dies, the souls live on, but go to another sphere. Like even in antiquity, we have reports about that, and we have reports about that in medieval times. For example, Hieronymus Bosch painted a picture in which he showed such a tunnel with light and with a person there, and it seems that he has had contact with people who had these near-death experiences.
And maybe we came alien. Who knows?
Who knows?
I'm kidding.
We cannot refute that.
Okay. Thank you for coming. That was a great story. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for the very good questions. It was a pleasure. Hvala.
Hvala vama. Sjajan čas i nauke, istorije, religije, svega. Hvala vam puno što ste nam bili gosti večeras. Vidimo se narednom prilikom. Ja se nadam da smo malo zagolicali maštu našim gledaocima večeras. Hvala još jednom. Thank you. Dr. Aleksandar Fink i Samuil Petrovski, naši i vaši gosti. Interesantna tema, nije baš uobičajena, ne pričamo svaki put i o kosmosu, i o veštačkoj inteligenciji, i o religiji. Dobra priča za večeras. rtvzonaplus.rs je naš sajt. Facebook, Twitter i YouTube, to već znate, ostanite uz nas. Svako dobro, prijatno.